Cracking. Okay, I can see you guys coming through there. Apologies about that. Everyone had a slight technical issue on my side, so my fault. You can blame me. We're just going to give everyone a chance to join in, get everyone in the webinar, and then we'll get things going. But great to see some familiar names in there. Everyone rocking up for the legendary Stu Hurst. He's a big name, always attracts big numbers, don't you, mate? So it's good.
He's supposed to be technically aware, but can't use GoToWebinar, that's for sure. This is scaring me. It's all a big lie.
Brilliant. Cracking. Okay, so let's have a little look. So those numbers are filling up. Brilliant. Okay, guys, I will just give it another 30 seconds or so. Make sure we've got plenty of time to get everyone in there. Apologies again for the delay, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be a good one, this one. So you've got myself, Jack, client success from GoProposal, and then more importantly, we've got Stu here as well. So I'll do introductions. I'll talk us through what we're going to be focusing on. Hopefully there's going to be some good challenge discussion within there, but the big thing that we're going to do, and this is something that I know Stu will agree on, is give you something to take away. So obviously with webinars, obviously a lot of information, but we want to answer the so what now question, and what you guys can prioritize off the back of this, and hopefully give you something that you can have immediate impact within your business. That's what we're looking to do. Cracking. Okay, so those numbers have started slowing down now, so I think we're good in terms of moving forward. So I'm just going to click into there so you can see a couple of pretty faces right there. So there's myself already, as I mentioned, head of client success at GoProposal, and then Stu, we've got the founder of Cloud 10 Accounting. I'm sure you guys have seen him around on socials and things like that. Big name that everyone's aware of. So I think it's great that we've got you here, Stu. I always love doing these webinars with you, mate. So thank you very much.
No problem.
Now,
It's a pleasure.
Just before we get into letting Stu introduce himself, anyone that doesn't know him, and talk through what we're going to look at here, I'm just going to talk through the contents of this and what we're going to look at. So we're talking about what we've coined. So James Ashford coined as the gloss method. It's an approach and a method for having sales conversations with your clients, essentially. So effective sales conversations that move you away from just pitching to people, hence it's the pitch in the name, and how you can really get to the point of value where what you're doing is delivering against the goals that they want to achieve. That's what we want to hear. In business terms, it's the return on investment. Why are they paying you for your time? What are you going to give them in return there? Why should they care that they're paying you X amount each month and that they've got this service from you? What is going to be the outcome from that? So you can see the GLOSS method essentially stands for goals, location, obstacles, speed, and solution. That's our version of it. Stu's got some slight variations within there in terms of what we'll be looking at, and much more practical day-to-day experience of delivering this, which will help you guys understand where the nuances are, where you might get tripped up, where you might want to change your approach in certain instances. So I think with that in mind, I'm just going to jump on to the next slide. I want to introduce obviously the GLOSS method as I have, but more importantly yourself, Stu. So are you able just to give us a little bit of background around your sort of time in the industry, but also your journey in life in general? Yeah, that'd be really good if you can.
Yeah, for joys. Accounting for 20 years for my sins, believe it or not. Started when I was 7. But yeah, before Cloud 10, I was director at Counsel and Legal, a firm that scaled from a small, myself and one person in Manchester effectively were in an office, and we scaled that to 2.5 million turnover in 4 years. A lot of restructuring. So a lot of that from me was kind of GoProposal day one, proposals, the little school of James Ashford and the book and all that kind of stuff, and lots of car crashes along the way, lots of learnings as we've gone. Also involved in a huge reprice with that firm. For the London office that existed, needed a big reprice, and that was I mean, I've done separate webinars on that with the bloodbath and what was involved, but that helped hone the sales skill, so to speak. It's as hard to speak to existing clients on repricing, if not more so, than it is on the new ones. And then yeah, set Cloud 10 up on the 1st of April Fool's Day. Yeah, says a lot. And in that 9 months, we scaled from nothing to 6 staff, 400k turnover. Which, you know, there's branding in there, there's a social profile, but a big part of that is delivering on sales. In most instances, I'm going up against 2, if not 3 other accountants when we get to the sales talk. And yeah, there are certain things that people say to me afterwards, because again, we'll come back to this, I'm jumping ahead, but of when you win work, asking why you've won it, and that is fantastic feedback, as well as when you've lost it. So I think I'm no expert, but I'm just trying to hone kind of the nuggets and the feedback that I've had, really, to tell you all what's worked for me and what absolutely hasn't, and killed it. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell, really.
Fantastic. And I know obviously we're going to talk about like clients wise and things like that, but also I think it's really important for the guys on the call for like what's their why within this, why should they be here giving up their time. And I think, I don't want to speak for you, Stu, but obviously you talk a lot about revenue and margins and how you can grow those and things like that. But I think there's also a little bit of a personal thing for you. You very much you want a challenge. You like being able to run things. It's something that's more than just earning cash to you, isn't it? In terms of your why. So is there anything you can talk to us about why you do this? Why it's important to you that you can make that revenue? Obviously, I know it's important that you can get paid, but there's other things around your sort of sense of what you go out there to achieve, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. That's, well, yeah, first top tip, so to speak, and takeaway, I guess, when we speak to clients and how things work. But some of you will know on the call, I preach a lot now about my background. That my dad ran a business, ran out of money, had a heart attack, stress over cash, lost his mum while he was in hospital. We lost our house, we lost everything. He tried to kill himself and had a 7-year battle with anxiety and depression. And this was 1996, but his account was a once a year bag of records. There you go. My dad didn't have a clue about numbers, but was a very good decorator and did Eric Cantona's house and some not so hot City players. But but there's that sense of, I always thought, if someone could have helped him with numbers, like our lives as a family would have been completely different. And that's the driving force for me. Is I don't, at my old firm, I'd worked with some multinationals, and I had to quickly realise that's not my vibe. I don't really care for huge finance directors that have got, understand debits and credits and get that. My real vibe is from 100k to maybe 5 million turnover businesses, because even them 5-10 million pound business owners, you'd be surprised how many don't know numbers. And again, we'll come back to that on some of the goals question, but the real thing is helping business owners understand the numbers. And again, I'll touch on it as we go through this, but that absolutely shines through. Not just the selling to serve, and that mandate tells you to ask lots of questions, but it doesn't, I don't think it says much in terms of selling yourself sometimes on the way that you're doing things. And a big part of selling is selling my story to clients, and they actually believe, I mean, it's a true story, but they really believe that from day one I'm out to help them on a mission, as opposed to, it's not a service, it's not a transaction, it's we're on the team. And I go a long way to doing that with that story. Again, I'll touch on it in more detail as we go, but
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the reason I just wanted to just get a little bit of a flavour for that now, Stu. I think it's really important for the guys on the call here, because on a whole, I'm not saying it's every single instance, but whenever I speak to accountants that are set up, or a small medium business, money's part of it, but there's always something else behind that side. People will have their own reason here on this call today. So it's like, why would they go through this pain? And what's the point of making this change and having what can be difficult conversations with your clients? Because money will be part of it, but I know in my experience working with business owners, you've got something else behind that, something else that's a little bit bigger than that, whether it's family, whether it's your own personal goals. So I think it's just really good that you've got such a poignant one there as well. Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to talk through this method now, as I say, goals, location, obstacles, speed, solution, but it's going to really be the spin of Stu and how Stu's approached this, and try and draw out some good stories from that, how he approaches it, and some practical things that you guys can do as well. So I will go through and I will do my best to draw out all the best advice from Stu and understand exactly what you guys can take away from that. As I say, and I've said this at the start of lots of webinars now over the past few months, the most important thing is what's going to change. So what now? What are you going to do? What's the one actionable thing that can see a difference in the next week, month, whatever that's going to be? You're giving up your time. That's how you make money, your time. So let's give you a return on investment in that. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of stuff that we can give you to go and deliver on that as well. Fantastic. Okay, so I suppose if we start with the goals section here and understanding the why of the client as well, I think how I'd like to work through this, Stu? I know we spoke about this yesterday as well, and it felt like this was the natural way of approaching it, was why this is important, and then a little bit around sort of your practical approach to this and how you deliver that as well. So firstly, why is this, do you think, the most important starting point when you're working with your clients, for both your clients and for yourself?
So I think for the clients that we work with, we've got to make sure, you know, I'm such a bloody passionate, yeah, we're changing the world, like we want to make a difference, that I want that sense of, you know, whether they're an insurance broker, they work in IT, or they're building a new piece of technology, that they care about what they do, I guess, is the first thing, that there is some hook behind it beyond it being, you know, a bit of a drag, and it's just something that's ticking along. Because in my experience, those that aren't that bothered and are just bouncing around, are way more price sensitive, but more importantly, don't listen to the advice that we give or that help. And there's nothing more frustrating, and it gets difficult. So we don't enjoy it, our team don't enjoy it, and the client probably doesn't enjoy it because they're not that right type of match with where they want to go. So the first thing I start with, I don't even call it a goal, I would call it a dream. I say, like, what's the dream? That's a goals are okay, but when I think of goals, I think of New Year's resolutions. I'm going to lose half a pound. I'm going to get my 5k down by 2 minutes or whatever. It's a more thing I'm going to achieve within a set time frame. A dream is, you know, for me, a much bigger picture thing, and that is always question one. And I just think that's a really good tone for the type of person that you are working with, whether they are more visionary type or integrator type. And sometimes people don't know, like, that's okay. Like, they'll have well, no, I tell a lie. Everyone should have a dream. I want to retire in Edinburgh is in terms of my long-term plans, and I want to build a practice that can follow on long after I'm gone and left here, and I want to invest in other accountants and build pods of accounting firms, and that's the dream. Goals wise are a little bit harder sometimes to formulate and a bit more short term. So we'll ask dreams, and then we'll ask goals of, like, are we going to get there? Have you got plans for that? And that's the bit where people can struggle. And it's okay for people not to have them, but it's not okay for people not to dream, for me. So I have cut calls after 5 minutes on that first thing of, let's not waste an hour of your life, let's not waste an hour of my life. We'll call it there. We're not the right fit. And normally I will refer them to a cheaper accountant at that point, where it's very obvious that. So I'm not just leaving them going, forget it, but I am saying, right now, it's not a good fit. And I think a lot of accountants, there's an ego or a fear of, oh no, I've got to put that full hour in, and you know, you're just not making use of your time, and you're not betting anything. So don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to reject that on that first bit if the goals are not aligned. And if anything, I think of all the things we work with, we're not bothered about industry, we're bothered about this. So that is absolutely where we start. And there's so many questions that can evolve. So another thing around goals is just be really structured with. So back when I was at A&L, we had 50 staff, and I can guarantee that every single one of those accountants had very similar scripts, very similar questions, and they had their own style. I'm zany, talk too fast, as you can probably tell now. Others are more calm and relaxed. So use your style to your advantage, but the structure, we use a piece of software called the Gendly, which is a fantastic little bit of meeting structure, and it makes sure that things are being followed and working. But you should easily have 30 questions in your question bank of questions around goals, around dreams, around targets, around savings, around, are they married, are they not, have they got children, what are the plans for those things? And you can get really deep really quickly on these things. And I think it amazes me, you know, at my old firm I used to work with, I had managers that had clients for 5 years and couldn't tell me more than the name of the company, and like, oh, they're in IT. I'm kind of like, what is that for a level of service? So lots and lots of questioning at this stage, and don't be afraid to challenge and dig deep. And when we say goals, not everyone needs to build the next Apple or Google. I'm okay, you know, I always say with my staff, I'm okay if someone wants to be a bookkeeper forever. There's no shame in that, as long as they want to be the best version of that and continue to improve. And that's just, yeah, really, really important to get at this stage. And most important one, yeah, go where you go. Like, if your gut is screaming no at this stage, then call it, like, for all the logic in the world, which probably goes against what most accountants would think. But Yeah.
No, I really I think one of the things, and this was when we spoke to you, this is a completely different lens that I had on it in terms of this also being a way of funneling whether they're right for you. So I think there's probably people on the call who've had attempts at talking about bigger value services and maybe not had this conversation. It's frustrating when the people don't want to talk about how they can grow their business or how insights into management accounts can help them with that next step. And it's such an interesting view on goals, not just being this will help you sell more services, also it'll be a flag if you're not going to be able to sell anything else. It's like they could be the perfect fit in lots of ways, but if they don't care and they don't want to tell you their goals, then they're not going to buy that other stuff. And again, you're the person who should be saying more here, but the other thing that really lit up then when you were saying that is when we talk about difficult conversations, when I think about difficult conversations around this, I think I always get stuck on the idea of it just being price, but I think actually digging into this sort of stuff with people sometimes could be difficult, especially if, like you're saying, you've got to go, well, this is not a good fit. Like, you don't know where you want to be. You've not got any goals. This is not going to be right for us, but I can recommend you someone else. Like, that's not an easy thing to do, I don't
No,
think.
it's not. It wasn't the first time I did it. I was like, oh, I think it went like red like a beetroot, and was like, but it does get easier, like it does, and you get more confident and you get less. A lot of accountants or anyone in sales, almost you can start to reek of desperation of you are bending backwards to sell and sign that client up. And I've certainly learned over time that like that is not the way to scale a practice. I should add, Cloud 10 from day one has been profitable for those full 9 months. We're not chasing turnover and selling the dream and working on wafer thin margins. We're making decent figures. I earn more now than I did on my MD salary because we're working with the right people for the right prices, delivering the right services. So saying no is, if there's one lesson, like saying no is your most powerful weapon probably in there, to be honest.
Fantastic. That's great.
Yeah, and the other thing on goals, send them in advance. I found we got not 30 questions, but I would ask what's the dream? Have you got a plan to get there? What would you give your accountant out of 10? And what would make a 10 out of 10? Those 4 questions in advance. And I always say, look, you don't need to email back. You don't need to give me your answers by email, but it would really help the call and make the most of that 45 minutes we've got together if you are going to think about that and come with something. And since we started doing that, the conversations are just, because if some people do get caught on the spot. What's your dream? What's the goal? Oh, I don't know. I'm on the pressure. So let people think about it. And even that is different. Most accountants, when they get a prospect call, do not send an email like that and do not ask those kind of questions. So you're differentiating before you've even gone on screen with them and set that call up. So you're 1-0 in front of the competition straight away if they are doing a comparison.
That's fantastic. So I think just at that point there, I just want to reflect on what we're talking about there in terms of a real amazing practical takeaway there, because that is, think about pre-call prep for that individual. Like, what do they need to know? How can we tee them up? We've just spoke about that being a difficult conversation. How can we make it less difficult by laying the land out in terms of what's going to happen, but also differentiate ourselves from exactly what it is that we're going to be doing. So can you just go through those questions again, Stu, the ones in the email? Sorry, just to repeat those.
Yeah. So it's what's the dream? Like, is there a grand plan? I would often like it would literally be that. How are we progressing on getting there? Like, what steps have you taken and how are you finding it? What would you give your current accountant out of 10? And sometimes I would put like, is there a specific reason you are looking to move? But normally they'll put that on the scoring. And then what is it that would make a 10 out of 10 account? Which again, it's from the School of J. Mashford book. Anyone that's read it, but just those 4, they were for me, they top tail really nice for like, this is where you want to get to. This is kind of what you're not getting right now, and signposting to what we need. Because again, when we get back to later on the solution, it just feeds so beautifully from start to finish that they've thought about it beforehand, and you've got some objection handling potentially there in your back pocket, because the things often they say 10 out of 10 accountants need is, I don't get any help with cash flow, I don't see them enough. Right, well, that's why we might cost a bit more, because we're going to make sure those services are being delivered properly. So yeah, it's great to get that down early doors.
And I think this sort of ties back to what you were saying there. I think that what a perfect week would look like for you question ties into things like you mentioned, like when you want to retire, things like that, because sometimes it's not just those massive audacious, like say, sell for 50 million quid sort of goal. It's like, well, actually, I just want to be able to not do this on a Sunday and take my kid to football, or I want to drop them off at school and start work at 10 instead of 9.
Yeah.
Like little things like that can actually be really helpful, can't they, in terms
And
of
kids
service
and family are like absolute emotional hooks. Like emotion and stories sell, not logic. These as logical as we are, emotions and stories 100% on all these things. So any emotional hooks in terms of like what they're wanting to achieve. Not that's why we ask, like, are they married, have they got kids, what's the situation is, because I genuinely, you know, I'm talking from first-hand experience of being a 14-year-old child that child was ruined on the back of like bad finances. So I know I'm asking to sell, obviously, and get that picture, but it really matters what their situation is. And again, most accountants on a sales call will not be asking, what does that look like? Even asking, are your parents still alive? Are you going to inherit anything from them? Will that change things for you or not? Like, will you have to look after them? Even like they are personal questions, but in 9 times out of 10, you're like, God, no one's ever asked me that. Right, well, this is how it's going to be from now on. So big life questions, really powerful. And finally, on the goal, just make sure you're circling back. That when it sounds really cheesy, that don't it circle back. That was horrible. I shouldn't have said that. But just make sure you're clarifying when they give you the answers at every stage of these 5 stages. You are asking back of, okay, so as I understand it, this is what you want. As I understand it, this is what you're looking for. As I understand it, most times they'll agree, but sometimes they go, oh no, actually there's this as well, or there's this, and you're getting that clarity as you go. And also, I'm using that point. That's where I'm making my notes on our software. Is when I'm asking back, is like, right, I'm taking almost a bit of a breather to be like, I've got to get this documented, because the future thing from the sale is this has to go to the team to pick up. And while they'll ask some of these questions again, I want them to go, okay, so the dream is da 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 da, da, and that can't happen if my notes are a shower. So asking back is clarity, but gives me a chance to jot it down as well. So it's kind of a dual whammy on that front.
Fantastic. So that repetition and getting that clarity just really helps with cementing that in. That's fantastic. So we've got, how can we think about laying the land here in preparation for that call, and then how can we make sure we're really crystal with the client on that piece there. So I think they're really good pieces of practical advice, as well as everything else you said there. I want to go off piece a little bit here, Stu, with a question that's come to my mind, which was when you mentioned the previous business, when people had been working for years with the client but just knew, oh, it was an IT business, didn't know them in depth. Like, are you trying to understand that at this point, at any point in this process, or is that something that comes over the first 6 months? Like, how do you go about understanding that side of it, not just their goals as well?
Yeah, so we're trying to understand. You can normally gauge with those kind of questions. You can get a real good feel for how passionate they are about their business. So when we get to the next sections, asking about how they'd want to improve their business, and like those questions come. So the dreams, all this stuff. For me, the dreams, the people, the family, all comes first. Like, I am centric on that person as a human being, and that can be a solid half of the call almost in terms of this area. And then it's move on to, right, let's get a little bit under the bonnet in terms of what the business looks like, what that's trying to achieve, and what those problems are that we are trying to fix specifically to make those dreams realised in a really easy way.
My only job is to keep the pace right here and talk about the right things on the right slide, and I've literally jumped the gun for the next slide with my question there, so I've taken us off piece there completely, Stu. So yes, I think you're leading us into location there in terms of why that's really important. So what does this mean to you in terms of location in this process and finding out where they are currently? How would you go about this?
Yeah, so in terms of like where they are right now, it's a lot of them struggle with this in terms of where they want to be and where things are. So it's just certainly to start with focusing on where are we working towards, and it feeds back to that dream a little bit, but we try and establish like what's most important. This is where we get to the business of what's most important for that business, like what would it need to achieve to make those dreams happen. So we just asking questions like that, and the location bit of where you are, this is your best marker of how financially literate that person is, because some can give an answer that is, okay, we've made a profit of X amount, we've done this, but we need this for growth, we might need this finance. Other people won't touch a number in any of this kind of, in this where are you now. It might be flustered, it's more of a emotional state as opposed to anything logical. So this is where we're asking a bit more about like, do you understand where you are right now? So I have a classic question at this stage in the game of, do you know the difference between a P&L and a balance sheet? And 70% of clients go, yeah. And so many accounts just leave it there. Ask them, tell me the difference, put them on the spot, make them squirm a bit. It's okay. And I always say I'm doing this because I hear that a lot. I literally say, they always tell me that and they don't. So I reckon again, of that 70% that say yes, I would say 80% of that 70% get it wrong. And I just want to break down that barrier that it's okay to look stupid. Like, there's no stupid questions. It's okay to be, you don't know where you are and you don't have a clue about the numbers. It's okay to, you don't pretend in front of me. So I ask them that, and I'll ask them, do they understand, even if they've got some inkling of a balance sheet, in my eyes, in most businesses, the most important number on a balance sheet is net current assets, because that defines, if everyone knocks on your door tomorrow, can you pay everyone? And that's how I literally label it to them. And that is such a big question at this part of the location, because we are desperately at this stage trying to de-jargon the accountancy stuff into just basic profit, balance sheet. Net current assets means if people are knocking on the door, have you got enough money? Look at that number now on your screen, find that number and tell me what it is. Has it moved? And you, at this stage, I'm just trying to create financial curiosity if they've not got it on a location. Of like, oh, I've never been, like, again, I've had this on sales calls many times. I've learned more from you about my numbers, about finances, than I have in X amount of years with my accountant. No one has stopped to talk to me about the actual what they mean, because everyone just goes to here, sign your accounts off, there you go, your assets have moved by X amount. And it's rare that someone would challenge that. No one wants to look an idiot. I've you know, you don't sit in front of someone who knows this stuff and challenge it very often. So the where are they now is, it's not just a, if they can't give you numbers, really push on the, like, well, how do we understand them? What is your financial understanding? And that is my big thing here on this one.
I think that's really good in terms of the two key elements for that that I'm thinking as a takeaway, Stu, are, one is, yeah, this is the real chance to understand their literacy around the services that you offer. But this first point as well, which is, you could say, oh, like, where are you now? What's your location? And they might go, oh yeah, well, Dave's underperforming and doing my head in, and I need a new window in the office. Like, we need to really hone in and control what that looks like. So we've got in here in terms of like the industry revenue, staff members, transactions. Is there anything outside of that financial literacy, but also elements of the business that you think is really important for people on this call to ask?
I think it's more. Yeah, I think it's more like that list. If I had a pound, I mean, I don't think I've ever met one director, maybe a handful, that can tell me the number of transactions and invoices on a call like that. Like, it's a, and whenever they do give me a number, I guarantee if we're doing bookkeeping, it's always too bloody low. How many times have they said 100 and you get in front of it and it's 300? So I'm more concerned about the top level. The industry is obviously important, and an idea of revenue, but do they know profitability? Do they know the difference between a gross profit and net profit is more important? Those kind of questions. And I don't care what the answer is. I care if they know it or not, and if they can know the difference. And again, I'll be asking, what's the difference between gross profit and net profit? I'm trying to challenge knowledge at this stage for where they're at, as opposed to because that will help me two things. One, know the services and what support they'll need, but also, again, we've got 5 members of the team now. It will affect directly which member of the team they are put with, even at this stage, on how financially literate they are, because we've got people that do management and more sophisticated stuff, and other people that are more business owners and have a Scooby-Doo, and that's what I'm trying to find out as well at this stage in the game. So I'll obviously ask a number of staff and directors and transactions ballpark, but even that, I'll ask, if you looked at a bank statement, how many pages would you have? On average, is about 30 transactions per page, and that's a better guide than asking how many transactions have you got. And even at this stage, just stressing that when you are quoting, again, people get caught, they quote, and then actually it's double that, and you're like, uh-oh, we just quoted. So at this stage on the proposal, make it crystal that any numbers being used are absolutely provisional, and if these are dramatically different, we will be, as soon as we've signed up, like, we get under the bonnet, we will be re-quoting from that point. Like, we can't carry a £600 a month difference if the bookkeeping, particularly bookkeeping and VAT, if they're wildly out. So again, there's sometimes a desperate to sell on these calls, and it's like, yeah, we'll say anything, yeah, we'll take that number and that's your quote. It's not. It's the best guess on what the information that we've got.
Yeah, fantastic. And in terms of I'm going to jump the gun again there. I'm going to hold that question back.
Right.
So let's move on to let's go. So where we are right now is we understand what it is they're trying to achieve. We understand a little bit around their sort of position financially, and what we're going to come on to next is where it is that they could be held up. So the Owen gloss, as we've termed it, is what's holding them back, what's stopping them there. So we've got some examples on that in terms of time, money, people, knowledge, that sort of thing. But what's your take on this, Stu? How would you jump into understanding what really is the problem that they've got that's stopping them doing that?
Yeah. So I don't like to I hate this phrase of like what's your obstacles, like because I just think, only from my experience, again, and who am I to challenge Mr. Ashford, but in my experience of selling the dream, obstacles is a defensive word, and people clam up and often don't give you the true answers or have a bit of a mind blank, and I don't know, the word obstacles just feels like even saying it now, I just feel like it's draining me, like, oh God, that's a pain to think about. So I try and flip it a little bit and just say, if you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing in your business, what would that be? And I find that generally gets a much better response in terms of honing in on one particular thing. And it's just, yeah, because obstacles, you generally get that time, money, people, that is you get that general answer. But I think with a magic wand, you can get a much more honed, only in my experience, again, I'm no bloody expert, but I get better answers of that, and then I can dig a bit deeper, of clarify, because sometimes they'll give you symptoms, not the main problem itself. So they might moan, oh, someone's a pain in the ass on my team, it's really difficult, but that is the problem. There is potentially your appraisal and performance review, staff onboarding, documentation, staff structure. Like there's a deeper underlying problem. It might not necessarily just be a person, if you like, as how it got to that point. So particularly if they've been there a while and then become a problem. So we're asking questions around that, and then we're just trying to link it back to services at this stage in the game of how what we do can help that. So again, I'm a lover of the book Traction by Gino Wickman, which I always bang on about loads. So I'll often bring that in, if part of the solution or my thoughts on that can relate to that. I'll be bringing in my take on that of, have you thought about this, have you thought about that, just as a starter, so they can see that it differentiates us, because a lot of accounts will talk about the numbers but not so much about, well, what process maps have you got a dedicated sales person, a finance person, a market person, a ops person, have those roles defined, what does that look like, and just speaking from experience really of how difficult it is. So yeah, that's kind of how we go about that, and it's much more specific than as opposed to the time, money, people, knowledge. It's can be a bit wishy-washy, I found, when you ask obstacles.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it makes me think of something that you said, who am I to challenge James Asher, but he actually told me something the other day around the term priority, and they had been priorities as plural, actually only evolved really recently in the English language, and before that it was always one single priority, because you can't have multiple. It's what's the most important thing. And your phrase there, wave a magic wand and fix, is going to just hone in on that single thing, isn't it? Like, what's the one thing that we want to fix? Because if you look at those 5 things, you can probably find obstacles in every single one of those categories in every business in the world, can't you? Yeah. So it's about what's the most important thing. So I really like that. So I suppose,
crucial. Oh yeah, go on. You could on there, but just crucially then, as I said on the goals, the crucial bit on the obstacles bit is repeating back, so you understand it. This is the area where you can go most awry in what you think you hear versus what they say is different. If there's one area that you're going to get wrong, it will be this. So repeating back what they said, or as you understand it, is really, really important. And sometimes it can even go into unmasking a deeper problem, if you like, or unwrapping things. So, and again, I'm asking that to get better understanding, so that they know that I'm listening, and I get my notes down then as they're refining that, if you like. So we've got that from day one.
Fantastic. So I know we had a conversation about these couple of slides yesterday, just around like what they're going to say back to you in terms of their obstacles and what's holding them back. But I think what you're saying there is the most important thing for everyone on the call to think about, which is how can you get real clarity on that number one thing. I think these obstacles and the understanding of why here is still important to think about the types of categories that we've got. And I think, we've got time, money, people, knowledge or skills, technology, and I know you call us out, Stu, for you might hear, oh, we don't have the right skill set. We're never going to hear that. But I think what it does nod towards is that really nice idea of you're not just an accountant, you're a business advisor. So the Gino Wickman piece is really important. You know how to run a small business. You've got that experience, and having that expertise, you can help other small and medium businesses with it. So it's
and
not
having these bracketed is cool for the workings, but no one's ever said to me we don't have the right technology. They'll often talk about processes being a pain or difficult potentially, or manual or not working, and that might indicate that it is a technology that is often, when we're bringing in the cloud tech, like that is often an easy win. But I find they often won't label it as easy as that in terms of those brackets. But again, that's where having detailed agendas with a load of questions and a load of potential things to look out for these things, that if someone says this is a problem, it relates back to this, have a think about this, because I've really tried hard these last 9 months to get what's in here like actually documented on this, to make little Stuarts on the sales front of being able to take those calls and in that level of detail. So when we're doing this, just making notes and making that part of an agenda structure for going forward, so that if something comes up that's a bit curveball, we actually get that documented, and then can we get that into our sales process going forward if something comes out. So I never think I've got all the answers. It really does evolve like from month to month in terms of the things that we are asking.
Yeah.
The other one is like the governments are changing, life's getting tougher, Trump's just come in, like these things change the questions sometimes in terms of people's fears, worries, obstacles, difficulties. So when we're building these appraisals agendas, we've never finished it. It's not stopped. We're moving with current affairs as well. So really important to keep it a living, breathing thing, as opposed to like I've made my sales template sound, I'll use it.
Yeah. Okay, that's really important. Just in terms of, sorry, one little sidebar. I do see the questions coming in, guys, and we will have time at the end there. So I'm not ignoring you. Those questions, just keep firing them in, and we'll run them past you at the end of the session as well. But just on that point around the big priority, that magic wand. Obviously, this is a human conversation, and their response might be lots of things in terms of what's going wrong, and quite a big expansive problem. At this point, are you trying to drill down and unpick the single thing, or are you just letting them tell you you're going to make a note of it and that'll come later down the line?
Yeah, no, I don't pick. I definitely ask questions to get to a ideal to a one sentence, a one liner of if they were labeling that problem. So yeah, they can sometimes not waffle, but go around the houses a bit, and that's why I ask the question back to make sure I've got clarity. And often they'll go, oh yeah, that is it, or no, it's not, and that's why we get the next layer. So it's not a deep dive. I'm not asking 400 questions, but I am mainly from paraphrasing back, working out if that's what their actual problem is as they see it.
Yeah, definitely. I think just again for people on the call, it comes naturally to you, Stu. I think these things, although you did mention in terms of it feeling awkward previously, but a lot of this does come down to being willing to put a rubber on the road and have that conversation and ask that next question. And sometimes it can feel like you're being a little bit pushy. I know you said that around like putting them on the spot around balance sheet and profit and loss and the difference there. So like I just want to challenge people that if you don't feel comfortable with this sort of stuff, like it's actually really necessary in lots of instances, and lots of these things that we're talking about, that you do push yourself and challenge yourself to dig into the goals, dig into those obstacles, have those direct questions being asked there. So in your experience, Stu, have you had to coach your team to be more direct in this?
And me, and you ain't ever getting a six-pack from sitting on a couch, are you? Like, that's comfy and easy watching Netflix and Squid Games, but the reality is I'm not going to self-improve, and it's hard. And this morning I've been at spin for 6:30 and badminton at 8, like a mental, and then I had therapy at 9, like a proper. So I've had a beast of a morning, but it's all self-development, and it's none of it's easy. And it's the same with this selling. Like, I didn't wake up one morning and could suddenly, I'm not perfect now, I'm still evolving, but my sales conversion rate is pretty decent, but it's come from years of working on it and personally being uncomfortable to start with. One side note: record every single one that you do. And when I don't do it so much now, I'll do it on a few where I think that was crap, because I still have them where you don't connect, and I'm like, oh, I've let myself down. and I watching back on like 1.5 to 2 times speed, and just pen and paper and making notes on, oh, I didn't do that right, missed a trick there, oh, they said something there, I missed that. Certainly on those that don't feel good, like they're the one. I don't watch the ones that were great, because that's just the crazy ego, really. Generally, like I'm like, I know the things that are going well. It's the ones that aren't, I'm writing down and going, how do I make it better? And then same with the team, that I will get them to record it, and don't watch all of them, but I'll watch them for that review process of, okay, but building in structure, building in set agendas, set questions, and lots of role play for the team originally, of like, and I do it in front of everyone, like where possible. People will be working and I'm the biggest distraction, because I'll be doing a role play with someone really loud, but I want everyone to hear and be uncomfortable, because if you can do it in front of your peers, it's not gonna be a problem in front of Joe Blogs.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a theme here, isn't there, in terms of like process really being your friend across this whole thing, whether it's how you prepare for a call, how you make sure there's the sort of catch-alls in place for reviewing and improving. And all of this comes down to, I think, a big love of process that you've got, and your ability to build that out as well, Stu. So just something else for people to think about in terms of, if it's hard, it's going to be a lot harder if you'd put yourself in a position where you're going in cold and you're just going to try and ask these questions. Prep is
That's
key
what I
on
used
for a
to
lot of
do.
this.
The other bit is, I'm crap with although I'm talking lots of process naturally. I'm an influencer, like this profiling. I love the big picture, hate process and detail. I have to work really hard personally at like making those notes and doing it, but also having someone else, if you're working with somebody else in the team that's strong in that, like I work with Amy's right hand woman, and she's very process task driven, and together we will sit down and put, working on the business days of really working through this stuff, and I push her to get, go on some sales calls if you like, but she's pushing me back on, right, well, we need your what's in your head documenting. This is not okay for it just to be with you. So there's pressure internally from the team of like, I'm terrible at documenting. I make no lie that, oh, I've done all this and it's all great. The team have really forced me and put me under pressure to do it.
Fantastic, yeah, brilliant. So we've got our goals, location, obstacles, and now we're looking at like the speed there. So how quickly are we going to get there? Now, I know I'm going through gloss here, Stu, and you've got your own iteration and version of this that you've tailored and made work really well for you. But when it comes to the speed side of things, how would you translate this into your day-to-day?
Yeah, again, it comes back to goals, how nailed on with goals they are and achieving certain things. But I've never met anyone that, it's about some people might want to go slow, but I've never met anyone that goes, oh yeah, I'm not bothered when it happens. When it happens, it'll happen. Like, I'll go slow. Like everyone wants what they can have. They want it yesterday, most people these days. So the speed thing is more about, for me, getting them excited about their destination. And everyone has a destination they want to get to generally. I'm trying to get them excited that if they work with me, they'll get there quicker. They'll get those things sooner, and they'll understand those things. So I always think that's, how quick do you want to go? Everyone would say yesterday, or does. So for me, this is more about setting excitement. We're talking about services a little bit more now, of the things that we can do to help. I'm not touching on price yet, but I'm talking about, cash flow comes up so much, and I will sell that. Wouldn't it be great if you understood your numbers, that you knew, and a story seller, again, I've said this multiple times now, but if they're in an industry doing something else, say, oh, I've got a client that did something similar. When we pick them up, they were in their overdraft by 25 grand. Took 3 months. We were on it every week. We managed their payments. We've got them more financially aware. We've worked with the bank. We've changed bank for them. We've got a better savings. We've done whatever. And now they're not in that overdraft, and that's been over an X period. And just stories like that are relatable are really, really useful. And that's, cash flow is and forecasting. We sell so much of that. I mean, Futurely, another little Sage product there, but we've ramped that up, like best part of half our client base are on Futurely, but when they came to us, one was like, so it's a real big adoption, and that's based on selling this. Wouldn't it be better with a better understanding? Like, you can't make these decisions, you can't manage your cash. And so that's, for me, is what speed is about, is that.
Yeah.
And the final thing on that is, we're not always more expensive, particularly if they come from a bigger place, but if we're adding on services or management accounts and cash flow, the big ones where clients haven't often had that. So we will often say, right, if we're crap after a month, 3 months, 6 months, or 12, and we are not delivering on this promise, I will give you your money back for the difference between what you're paying us and what you were paying your old accountant. that's how confident I am, and that's a massive confidence boost in terms of, what have you got to lose? Like, let's go for it. And I also say, again, just to make it real, this is real. I've offered that over 500 times over the course of the last 5 years in terms of that guarantee, and genuinely once, I've had to give that money back. And I even say it was a tattoo parlor, it was underneath our office, we couldn't get a bank feed set up. Why no one just walked downstairs and did it in front of him? Why we played by email? We messed up big time. We give it him back. And even me saying that is like, okay, so it's not a bullshit on the French guarantee. Like, this is real. There's a real example of someone that got it back, and he's saying, yeah, we're not 100%. And little things like that, to me, just make me more credible. So
yeah, and again, going off piste again with this little bit around the excitement. So just coming back to your idea of goals and setting goals and it being around the New Year's resolutions. I've been listening to a lot of stuff around that and trying to solve the messy middle parts. I've got a big goal for a fitness thing in the summer, but the messy middle is you get excited now, and then in the middle of it, that wanes and that drops, and that excitement's not there, which is where most people fall off. So are you conscious of that with your clients? You're always thinking how we keep their energy up around what we're achieving and sort of that feedback loop that happens after the sales process?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So all our clients have quarterly catch-ups, which is in itself is helping for that accountability piece. But crucially, probably on the webinar this, but we keep a couple of things. We keep the goals like listed of, again, business and personal, so they're on track and they're reviewed on are we on track for this, and where are we up to with that. We use action points carry forward from the next meeting. And again, a great way to sell budgeting. Often clients are going, I'll do it myself, I'll do a budget for the year. 3 months go by, they haven't done it. Like, right, there's an action point brought forward. Come on, we're behind already here. Like, right, let's sit down and do it. A couple of hours, however much money, let's do it. It's much easier to sell when a client has tried something and failed than just off the back of it. So we do that. We also keep what's called the value register. So whenever we a liquor bank we've introduced for a few clients where the savings are higher, that's a quantifiable, we have saved you X amount in thousands of pounds from introducing that savings. Other times it will be time savings on software coming in. We absolutely keep that register, and we don't show them that every single quarter of this is where we're at, but we do show them the journey of where we started to where we are. These are the things that have been like, look how it's got better, like look how we're closer to where you want to be. So, and again, I've met one other accountant that does that. So I think that's really rare. And then the team all know as well, because if staff want to go on a tangent here, but if staff want to grow, sometimes they'll move off to other clients and move up a portfolio. And there is nothing worse than getting a new client manager that knows nothing about what's been delivered or about that client. By having that held in that software and having that detail, like it just makes the transfer a little bit smoother. But anyway, I'm rabbiting now. I'm going over time.
No, that's really good. No, not at all. I think these practical things is what I'm really hoping people are making notes about, Stu, and taking away from there. So in terms of this slide here, now I think, again, this is probably a little bit of a challenge to the way you're saying that in terms of how fast we want to go. But is there any areas of service that actually you can ramp up and do it quickly? So I'm thinking like it's something that's delivered monthly rather than quarterly, or if you were to come in and do a massive, overhaul of systems in 3 months and it costs loads more than over a length of time. Is that ever something where speed does become a factor for you?
The biggest speed-wise will be sometimes cash flow management accounting generally, in terms of them wanting that information to be up to date, like that can help sell that. The biggest ones are on cloud conversions from the start. So we generally run a 3-month lead time for that for planning, but we can make that quicker, change those systems a bit sooner and onboard sooner if they want to pay a bit more for that. The other bit is in terms of retainer support. So when we do the odd sometimes like one-off cloud conversion, and we go to win the accounts, but we're like, oh, well, we're not going to go for it straight away. We'll win your trust. We'll do this, but they can pay more for that to go a bit quicker and get more of retainer support straight off the bat. So comes in for conversions, and I would say, yeah, generally management and cash flows. But accounts wise and catch ups, like no would be the answer, to be honest, in terms of where it's at, because we do that anyway. Like that's our minimum standard.
Fantastic. So we've got goals, location, obstacles, and speed, and now we're going to talk about everything that we can do for them. So
selling that dream.
This solution, selling that dream, exactly that. So what's this final piece of the puzzle like for you, Stu? How would you deliver this to your clients?
Yep. So obviously we've asked that question of what would make a 10 out of 10 accountant earlier. So we're crystal on the services that are there. obviously we use GoProposal. We've got all the line items out. I share that on screen, like line by line of what's there. So there's again, it's still, we take it for granted, I guess, in the GP community that every accountant does that. But the reality is most won't give a figure there and then or indeed break up exactly what that is. So breaking that up, often, particularly we're sometimes more expensive, particularly provided new services, but then I'll come back to that. But you said a 10 out of 10 account would be giving you cash flow information. Like, we can't do that without a price being in there. Like, we want to service you and make sure you're okay. So we will ask clients what the budget is as well. So I don't mind trimming back sometimes on services. If the, I would love to build a new. I haven't still got a website after 9 months, which is disgraceful, really. And it's on the list, but like, you know what? I'm like, oh, we're enough work, fine, it's all right. But at some point, I'll spend the money. Like, it's not like I don't want to, but and I'd love to spend 20,000, but I won't. I'll probably spend 5. But it's okay if people aren't ready to make that full leap, if you like, on everything. Even if they need that, I don't mind trimming back and going for accounts, quality catch-ups as a bare minimum and build from there. Sometimes what we'll do on solution-wise as well is, again, we don't tend to do it on new clients. It'd be on existing clients where we know there's a gap for management or cash flow, and again, it's a bit risky, but we'll give it you for sometimes either money back guarantee of we'll do it for a month. It'll cost us if it's rubbish. I'll give you the money back if you don't carry it on, even. Or sometimes we'll do it for free for a month just to go. You need a taste of this to see what this is like. It'll be worth sticking with. So we would do that. Always put it on the roadmap on the little tick box for services, so that they're in GoProposal you can tick the roadmap, so you've got other services that are there, so they're aware. And then this is a chance where this is where generally I would sell my why. So loads of accountants say they're great at cash flow, loads of accountants will say they do managements and accounts and all that crap. But if you took your company name off and put someone else's on, how different are you? And this is where I really lean into the story about my dad of, look, I know how hard it is to run a business. My childhood was ruined. My dad tried to kill himself because of these numbers. Really lean into my own why, on why I care, why I give a shit, again, pardon the French, because and that passion genuinely blows clients away, where they're like, I've never met an accountant that has been so on that, wanting to, we are a team here, the sense in that. And you don't need to have had a personal tragedy to sell that, but when we're talking about why on the solution, this is where, for me, you lean more into your why. You lean into what makes you different, and not the we are proactive. That's such an ugly phrase that every accountant says nowadays. Cloud accountants, it's not enough anymore. Like that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe. So really lean into your actual vision. I'm hoping you've all got visions. I'm hoping you've all got 3 USPs. I'm hoping you've all got core values. This is the chance at this point to really lean into that and make that final connection. And then last bits is just ask, set a date for follow up. Ask them, James is on, why don't they sign up now? He's obviously better than I am, because some sign up, I reckon maybe 10% sign up there and then and go, yeah, sorted. Most, I think it can be a bit pressury to be like, come on, sign. So I don't mind giving people time, but I do set a specific, I'll go into the diary and literally go, oh, next Friday, what, 10 o'clock? All right, I'll give you a call at that point, like if they're not moved, so there's a real thing. And just remember that no, if they do say no, it's not necessarily a no forever, it's just a no for now. So one thing I do if we lose a prospect is I put a diary reminder 9 months, in 9 months time, to phone that person back and say, how's it going with that new accountant, or sticking with that old accountant? Did they live up to the dreams? Have they turned it round? And you'd be amazed. Again, probably 7 or 8 times out of 10, they go, oh, no, actually, it's a bit shit. Again, pardon the French, sorry, Sage will shout me on this big time. If I wouldn't have phoned them, they wouldn't have probably come back to me like that. You sometimes don't want to admit. I mean, I'm never wrong anyway, but people don't want to admit that they're wrong and come back sometimes cap in hand. So giving that follow up just gives them an opportunity to go, actually, yeah. And if they say it's great, some do. Some say, yeah, it's all right, fine. But even then, I'm checking in again next year. Like, it's never lost. And I know we had a chat offline about I am married, my wife. We met 20 years ago originally, worked together for 6 months, Facebook friends. I asked her for a drink, she unfriended me. And then 13 years later, I added her on Facebook and she deleted me. She denied me 5 years in a row. I kept adding her and she kept saying no, before she sent me a snotty message going, who the hell are you? Why do you keep adding me? And then we finally got talking. She remembered me. And now we're 5 years together and married. So like persistence really does pay. So never give up on it. Not if you want it and if you really think there's a fit there. I'd be lying if I said I have to follow all the clients up. There's some that are smaller in particular where I think, you know what, yeah, if we win it, we lose it. It's not world ending, but there's somewhere you're like, oh, I know they've made the wrong choice. I know we could have done cool stuff. I'm going after them. So yeah, that's that.
That's brilliant. I think I know there's some elements in here in terms of those principles of showing that you're a trusted advisor, not giving them too much choice. You've sort of covered all of this content here, I think, Stu. But I think one of the things that has really clicked then with me is that the start means that this part can be really sort of passionate, and you can keep going after them because you've done your due diligence. The goals location where you're like, oh, these people don't know what they want, they're not the right fit for me. There's that sort of that funnel that goes, right, okay, I'll get rid of these people, but actually the exciting people will get here, will convert more, but also I've got to the point now where I know they're a really good fit, so that follow up and it actually makes it worth it. Because if you didn't do that, then you're following up with all of the people that you had at the start. It's almost like that's a bit of a scattergun approach, but you've created this perfect funnel, and it then leads to a pot of people that's really good fit for you. You know you can work well with them and are worth following up. So I just really like that practically in terms of what that means for the business.
Yeah.
Now, we've got sort of some summary slides here that we can share. So this is just a summary of that process with the caveats of Stu's variation there in terms of his approach and how he does it. So what I want to do now is just get onto the questions within there. But is there anything else that you think you've missed there, Stu? Anything else you want to mention before we look at what people are asking in the chat?
Just to come back to systemize the hell out of it from word go, and like again, James, version 1 better than version none, like, and it's so true. And it's just, this wasn't this slick kind of up to speed thing that it is now, like, and it's still got way to go. Like, our proposals could be glossier and a bit nicer in terms of presentation wise, but you want to feel a bit uncomfortable. Like, if this doesn't come naturally and you don't feel uncomfortable, then you're doing it wrong. Just take time.
Cracking. So some really good practical questions actually here, Stu, for you. So Dave asked, does this work as well remotely? So on video or on phone even, or is it face-to-face better? How do you see it in terms of that delivery of the process?
Video, I would say, again, maybe 80% of ours video and 20% face-to-face. There'll sometimes be a phone call before, and like, I know, again, James had the 15-minute prospect call, then an hour. I kind of cut that 15 minutes sometimes into that first hour and just cut them off after 10 minutes if they're no good then, and then just carry it on while I'm there. For me, I'm like, why would I set up 15 minutes then have to set something else up, get it in, and just decide then of where I'm going to carry it on or not, to be honest. But yeah, most are online. Seeing my face I think is important. And even I'm in the gym today living my best life, but normally when I'm on calls, my background is full of board games, Pokemon, there's a Pac-Man arcade machine. It's very me in terms of the passionate geek that I am, and even just setting that tone of like, this is what we're about. And we're not, I know most accounts aren't shirt and tie these days, in this space, but just that setting the tone. So yeah, online, absolutely fine. It's sometimes easier because you can have your second screen and be like, you've got, I have a script, there is a gently there, like I don't, it's not all free floating, there's a script, and I can check my GoProposal on my numbers and be like, okay, I know what I'm pitching to.
That's brilliant. So like video, fine, but you wouldn't really do it on the phone, I suppose, is essentially the approach there.
I don't feel like I can get my passion across well enough, and maybe other people can, but I can't. No, I get distracted also, but I can't focus.
Yeah, okay. And then another one from Nigel, which I think, again, really good practically in terms of, we mentioned that sense check at the goals location, but where are you getting them from to get them into that funnel? So where are your leads coming from to generate those conversations? What's the sort of source of those for you?
Yeah, so we've got mix. So LinkedIn is a great one. The highest value ones tend to come from there in terms of people reaching out. And again, that's the best part of 8 years of posting most days. Again, I posted for 6 months and got nada, absolutely nothing. And then the next 6 months probably picked about 3 clients. That was a year before that was really starting to rock. The other one, networking. And again, most accountants go to networking events and go, I'm an accountant. They're almost ashamed to be an accountant. It's sad, really. I pitch in with a changing lives, dad story, left, right, and centre, makes a real impact. So yeah, I have a really good rate on networking in terms of even meeting someone once and them finding it quite different. And then the other one that's growing now is existing client referrals. But that's, again, a separate webinar, but we run scorecards to death every week on operations, finance, and sales. And there is a lot of detail that goes into that every week for like where things are coming from and how it's working. And I track my LinkedIn post networking, one-to-one, and referrals, activity. So if I have Slack recently and dropped down on LinkedIn posts, it won't be a problem now, but in 3 months, I guarantee I'll be getting less leads than I am now from LinkedIn because I'm not putting the work in now. So while we're busy, so tracking activity every week, I would recommend same time every week on that front. As a complete side note.
That's brilliant, fantastic. So I know we're out of time. Dave has thanked you for your response there as well, which is brilliant, really solid stuff. There's so many other things we could have explored there that could have been a webinar on their own. So thanks so much for that, Stu. I really hope everyone was taking notes and has taken away those practical pieces, like what are you going to change is the most important thing, what's going to be different now, what's your return on investment of this hour that you've given. We really appreciate it. Stu, as always, like really appreciate your time. Those questions that come off piste mainly come because I'm really interested in what you're saying and I want to find out for myself. So thank you for that. And that's probably my fault that we were a little bit over time there. But anything else that can people reach out on LinkedIn? How would you like any responses?
Yeah, if people want to reach out on LinkedIn, I do help other accountants across processes and sales, and large and small. I work with some sole traders. I work with some massive accounting companies on this kind of stuff. So feel free to reach out on LinkedIn if that interests anyone. And yeah, I'm sure we'll do a more practical webinar on the actual onboarding process potentially as well.
Fantastic. Cracking. Okay, well, we'll be reaching out to everyone who's requested that. I know a few of you have said yes to that, which is great. And yeah, just once again, Stu, cracking stuff. I hope we get to do another one soon. And yeah, all the best, and all the best to everyone who joined us.
Cheers, thank you.
Cheers, guys.